Thanks so much for coming to this wonderful event today. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm thrilled to share my message with each and every one of you. Now, as many of you know, I am a local business owner here in Minot. I have a bookstore on Main Street. Very cleverly and conveniently, I've named it Main Street Books. Now, as a local business owner, I feel it's very, very important that I share my local message, shop local, local matters, with everyone in the community. And I do this a lot. In fact, I've been doing this for almost 8 years now. And for 8 years, I felt like little David competing against all the corporate Goliaths of the world. For 8 years, I've had to compete against all the national chains. This includes, of course, Amazon and their impossible to match pricing structure. This also includes Barnes & Noble and their incessant push to replace real books with e-readers. And this includes Walmart and their willingness to discount literature to sell more cat food and toilet paper. Now, one of the ways I choose to compete is through educating the public about the value of shopping local. Not only do I compete with customer service like any small business, but I work really hard to educate the community. And sometimes I even find myself in the position where I must educate the local media. For instance, there was the morning that I woke up, very excitedly saw there was a book review in the local paper. I excitedly read the book review until I got to the end. At the end of the book review, they recommended buying the book through Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com. They do this a lot, but this morning, I took my paper and I ripped it in two. I got in my car and I drove down to the local news office. I asked to speak to the editor. I asked him why he didn't think to list me as a choice to buy this book. He told me that he would have to call me up and see if I actually had the book in stock. I asked him if he had called Amazon or Barnes & Noble, and he said he had not. I then asked him how much they spend advertising in his local paper, and I asked him how much Amazon spends donating to any of your local organizations. He didn't know, but he did seem concerned with the fact that my paper was in pieces. He asked me if it had arrived on my doorstep in that condition. I told him that it had not, and he seemed pleased. And so I left wondering if he actually got my message, that local matters. But still, that doesn't deter me from spreading my message. In fact, if you have ever been in my store, you'll see that I have even less subtle messages around my store. Buy local, shop local, local matters. Even my shopping bags say buy local on them. And if this is your first time in my store, and if I hear you say the words Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com or Kindle, I'm likely to give you one of these. Now, this is the most powerful weapon toward building a stronger local economy, known to man or woman. This is our Here's What You Just Did flyer. And it lists 10 things that you do when you shop local. Sometimes I just call it my shop local propaganda. But today, I'm going to share 4 things with you, and then I'm going to add something else that I think is a very selfish reason to shop local, but I think is one of the most important reasons. And the first thing you did when you decided to shop local is you kept dollars in the local economy. Research shows time and time again that for every $100 you spend in a local business, $68 stays in the local economy. When you spend the same $100 at a national chain, only $43 stays in the economy. There are movements in communities called the 10% shift, in which people are encouraged to shift just 10% from the national chains to a local business. In New England alone, it's estimated that over $5 billion in economic activity would be had if everyone shifted just 10%. What could that mean to a community like Minot? That would be huge. That could mean money to stay in the community for infrastructure, for the bike paths that we all want. It could mean money for the things that I love, for human services, for homeless shelters, for the elderly, for the disabled. Because as they say, a community is only as strong as its weakest link. Shopping local will build that weakest link and make everyone stronger. And the second thing you did when you shop local, when you decided to buy those pastries in the local cafe or pastry shop instead of the Mega Mall bakery, is you helped create local jobs. Local jobs are jobs that are more likely to pay a living wage than national chain jobs. And just recently, we came this close to getting another national chain in our community. A lot of people were upset that we turned our backs on Walmart. But statistics show that we lose 1.5 jobs for every job gained when a Walmart comes into a community. And these are often jobs that we lose from local businesses. Some local businesses never do recover. Some local businesses have to shutter their doors for good, forever changing the landscape of our community. Another thing you did when you decided to shop local, when you bought your flowers at the local florist instead of the national chain, is you helped the environment. Shopping local uses less packaging, less transportation, and creates a smaller carbon footprint. And another thing that shopping local does to help the environment, I'm going to use a little example here. I have a really good friend. She's actually here tonight, and she's the most environmentally conscientious friend I have, but she would like to remain anonymous. Her name is Heidi. And Heidi used to cringe every time she saw my stack of styrofoam cups by my coffee maker. Local businesses listen to their friends, they listen to their families, and they listen to their own conscience, and they can make changes. They don't have a corporate officer that they have to okay things with. Anyway, we no longer have styrofoam cups, we now have paper cups. We can all thank Heidi for that. Another thing we might say is that local businesses are run by local people, and we have to drink the water. We have a vested interest in keeping that water clean. And when you decided to buy your coffee at a local coffee kiosk this morning instead of the national chain on the corner, you nurtured our community. Local businesses donate at twice the rate to local organizations as do the national chains, twice the rate. Like I said earlier, have you ever tried to get a donation from Amazon? It doesn't happen. How much money do we spend shopping with Amazon? Often, with any national chain, you have to go to the corporate office. My corporate office is downtown. It used to be the men's bathroom. I put a desk in there and I called it my corporate office. I am the CEO of Main Street Books. Denise, a gourmet chef, she's also downtown. Her office is next to her kitchen in the back of her store. And Mary Helen, Cookies for You, her corporate office is next to her cookie ovens. She probably has the best smelling corporate office in town. But the point is, we all live here. We're involved in these organizations. We have friends that are involved in these organizations. And we give more. Since we give at twice the rate, just imagine what we could do if the community supported us half as much as they support the national chains. That would be huge. It would make a huge impact on the community. Thanks. Now, this is where I add my own talking points for why you should shop local. This is the news flash. You just nurtured yourself. I think that every small business is in the nurture, pamper, and soothe business. And I have 3 short stories to illustrate this point. The first one occurred. This actually happens a lot. A woman came into my store totally frazzled. Obviously, she'd been having a rough day, week, month. After about an hour in my store, browsing the books, sipping the coffee, listening to the soothing music, she came up to me at the counter with 2 used books. She looked me in the eye and she said, "Thank you so much." She said, "I really needed that." She said, "I needed that." She paid for her books, and then she looked at me again and she said, "I feel like a new woman." She said she feels like a new woman. The second story, there's a man who has been a regular customer of mine for quite a long time. Ever since his children were maybe this little, I overheard him standing next to another father looking at the same bookshelf, and he turned to the other father and he said, "My children grew up in this bookstore." He said, "My children grew up in this bookstore." It's because we soothe, we nurture, and we pamper. But one of my favorite stories occurred early this summer on a Saturday morning. This little boy who lives downtown. He's about 4 years old. One morning, he dragged his grandmother into the store. She looked at me and she said, "He just had to show me his bookstore." He called it his bookstore. And he showed her all the highlights, the play area, his favorite picture books, and then the big couch where they curled up together, and she read him a couple stories. Now, as they were leaving, he looked at me and he said, "Thanks for the bookstore." He said, "Thanks for the bookstore." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to say, I hope that he would have the opportunity to grow up in this bookstore. I wanted to say, I hope that when he was grown up, the end of a really long, hard day, he would find us and he would find a way to be nurtured. And after an hour in our store, he would feel like a whole person again. But in the very least, I wanted to tell him what he just did for me. He just reminded me why I do this every day and why it's so important that I continue doing this every day. But I didn't say any of this. Instead, I just said, "You're welcome." The bottom line is, why does local matter? Local matters because you do. We all do, and we all deserve way better than what we're getting. And we need to nurture and support our local businesses, not only because we nurture and support your community, but also so that we will always be there to nurture and support you. Local matters because you do.